So I purchased two of these 15 by 32 inch thick 4 by 4 foot plywood boards. And if you want to, you can go ahead on and get your boards cut in half. That's what I did because I needed 2 by 2 foot pieces. So I had somebody cut them there for me at Home Depot. Then I got some Gorilla Glue wood glue. And then these are jigsaw blades. You want to get the fine finish wood blades. And then this is just an example of a jigsaw that I use, the Ryobi jigsaw. Then you want to get yourself a pack of spade bits. You want a 1-inch spade bit. I use Ryobi brand. And then this is just an example of a drill. I use a Ryobi brand drill, but that's where the spade bits are going in. So now I'm going to put my fine finish wood blade into my jigsaw. Now the blade and the jigsaw are two different brands, but this is a universal blade that can go into many brands of jigsaw. And then I'm going to put it on setting 3. And so now I'm going to measure about 6 inches of the board, and I'm going to cut this piece off, and that's going to be used for the base of my number. When cutting your wood, you want to make sure that the base of the saw is down firmly against that wood and that you're not lifting it up, and just slowly glide it across the line. So now I'm drawing my number onto my board with a Sharpie pen, and this was difficult. I had to make sure that the measurements was right because you want to make sure that your number is the same width throughout. I would suggest that you just purchase a digital download and then, print out the number and cut it out and draw that outline onto your plywood board. It'll be a whole lot easier than the way I'm doing it. So as you see, when I drew it, I made a lot of mistakes, but that's okay because you're not going to see it in the finished product. So I'm not a woodworking professional or anything like that, but I would just suggest that you just take your time and be safe, wear goggles and a mask, and just take your time with the saw and just glide it across the board slowly. By taking your time, it will allow you to be in control of the saw and it will make your cuts more accurate. Also, it is suggested that you use weight to hold down the other end of the board, but I was just being lazy. So here's what my number looks like cut out. So I just want to give a tip. So you see this number 4 here. Now, how do I get into that middle portion right there to cut that out? Well, I'm going to use my spade bit. So I got my 1-inch spade bit, put it into my drill, and I'm going to drill a hole in the center of that portion that I want to cut out. Then I'm going to take the saw, go in through that hole, and then go up and around the perimeters. So that's how I get those tricky parts, those middle parts that I want to cut out of the numbers. So I'm just going to show you how I use that hole to cut out that middle part in detail. You saw how I started right there at the center hole, and then I'm just going to cut to the right, and then I'm going to go down the line. And then I'm just going to cut out piece by piece using that middle hole as my guide. And that's how I'm cutting the middle portions of the numbers out. So now I'm going to take my 1-inch spade bit and I'm going to drill some holes into my numbers. So you want to make sure that you measure this out really well so that your holes are evenly spaced. Also, each number should have no more than 12 holes because the lights that I'm using, the Marquee lights that I purchased, they come in packs of 12. So you don't want no more than 12 holes, and you want to make sure that they're spaced out at a good distance, that you have a few inches of slack between each light, if that makes any sense. So now that I've drilled my holes in there, I'm going to use a sander to get all of the wood pieces out and also to sand the perimeter of the number so it's nice and smooth. So next I'm going to attach my base onto the number so that they can stand up on their own. Now, I wasn't the most precise in these measurements, but I would cut out sort of like triangular pieces. I would actually take scraps of some of the wood, and some of them already came out in a triangular shape. And I would just cut them, make sure they were smooth enough to go against the numbers. And I would just use my wood glue and attach them to the numbers. Now, all of the numbers except for the number 4, I used 2 pieces. The number 4, I only needed 1 piece. And some of these can stand on their own while some needed some support, but I would suggest that you let these dry for 4 to 6 hours before you put the other portion of the base on, which is that 6-inch wide piece of wood that I cut out at the very beginning. I cut these out for each number, and you just glue the base and the edge of the bottom part of the number onto the wood. And then you can use some support to keep it up if it's not going to stand up. But I like to keep it standing so that the gravity allows the woods to really stick together. And you let those dry for about 4 to 6 hours. So now here's how the number looks after I painted it white. It took me about 3 coats of paint so that you don't see the markings on there. But this is how it looked. And so now it's time for me to install my marquee lights. So the marquee lights that I'm using, I got off Amazon, and I'll leave the link to that in the description box below this video. They're battery operated. They come in a pack of 12, and the silver portion on the back of the bulbs are 1 inch wide. The distance between the lights is about 15 inches, just so you know when you're measuring the distance between your holes. You want to make sure that they're not longer than 15 inches. Actually, it's recommended that you make the holes no more than about 11 or 12 inches apart. And the reason for that is because you want to make sure there's enough slack between each of the bulbs so you can go over the back fins. As you can see, those fins that are creating support for the number, you want to be able to go over those fins and be able to stick those bulbs into the holes. So what was supposed to happen was that I just simply unscrew the bulb and stick it through the hole on the front side of the number. And then I was supposed to take the silver portion of the bulb that was 1 inch wide and stick it through the back, and then screw the bulb and the silver portion back again. However, because that silver portion is literally 1 inch wide and the hole is 1 inch wide, it wasn't enough space for the silver portion to go through. So I wasn't able to do it that way. So I had to find another way to do it. So what I did was I got my drill bit and I re-drilled into the holes. Now you want to make sure that the drill bit is all the way inside the hole before you start drilling. And then you want to turn it on and drill it. And what it did was it drilled out some of the paint that actually dripped into the hole when I was painting the number, and it widened the hole. So I was able to screw in the silver portion of the bulb from the front side of the number, and I'll show you how I did that. So first I took the light portion out of the bulb, and you can do that, it's removable. And then I just screwed the silver portion, and you're going to need a little elbow grease for it, but I just screwed it into that hole, and you want to screw it in nice and tight. And I did this with all of the bulbs because they were having trouble going in. So I just screwed it in from the front after making the holes a little bit bigger with my drill bit. Then I put the lights back into the silver portions of the bulbs from the back. And you want to make sure that you do this in order. So you start with the light that's closest to the battery pack, and you start all the way at the bottom, and then you work yourself up and around. If you like, you could tape the excess wiring to the back of the number so you won't see it from the front. So here's the finished product to my flat face marquee numbers. Now, I've made these numbers before, but I feel like this is a more new and improved way of making them. I feel like they're much more sturdier and they're thicker. And of course, you can make any numbers or letters that you want, but I made these for the graduation season, and I put some balloons on there for marketing purposes. So if you found this video helpful, go ahead on and like it, and please subscribe, and you'll get notifications on future videos on balloon and event decor. And until next time, I'll see you guys later.